Okay, welcome. Welcome to the first session of the Change Corner. It's a lecture series on circular economy. I'll explain in a minute why the series will be in English. So this is the Change Corner. The first session is an introduction to circular economy. And today I will first welcome you and explain the idea behind the Change Corner sessions. Then Patricia, who is there, our manager at UCLL of Eudres, will explain the Eudres project. The Change Corner originated from Eudres. Normally, Irene would be here as well to talk about sustainability at UCLL, but unfortunately she's sick, so she can't be here. If you're interested in sustainability at UCLL, we have she wrote a note about sustainability at UCLL that's available on the intranet, so you can read about it. And if there's enough interest, then maybe we can invite her in a later session to explain the framework on sustainability. And then Nicoletta, who's over there, who is a student here at in chemistry and environmental techniques, and she's also tied to the green offices of the KU Leuven. She will give an introduction to circular economy. And then I will say goodbye to you all. So first, a short introduction about Eudres. Patricia will explain it in more detail, but just so you have an idea about the Change Corner and how it's tied to Eudres, I wanted to explain to you that it's a European project, so it's an international project. The sessions are being recorded and are being shared with our partners. We're working together with 6 countries, and we're thinking about future universities and how they should look like. And in the future university, we want to have the research and the education tied to the region. So we want research to start from the needs of the citizens, needs of the organizations in the regions, and needs of entrepreneurs or innovators. And that's also why this Change Corner idea, where it came from. In a Change Corner, we want to inspire you with ideas on circular economy that are happening in the region, but we also want to hear about your ideas, the good examples that you see in your daily life concerning circular economy and the barriers that you face in becoming more circular. And we want to do that in several ways. So first of all, like I said, the Change Corner wants to inspire you, and we want to inspire you with the idea that change is just around the corner, that you can already see circular economy in your daily life, in small things, and that it doesn't always have to be like the perfect zero waste, but we can already do something. And we want to hear about your ideas. And one way that we want to do that is with a photo challenge. There was a photo challenge launched on our Instagram. The deadline to participate was normally this evening, but it will be moved to later this week. So in the photo challenge, you can share pictures of the things you already see, the good practices and the barriers to circular economy. And if you participate, you have a chance to win this coffee cup, which is actually made of waste. So it's made of coffee waste. So it's circular in itself. And if you share the pictures with us about your good examples and about your barriers, then we can also work on them. In Eudres, we have the capacity to do something with your ideas, your good examples, and your barriers. So we can use those pictures and those ideas to further work with them. And another way we want to do it is by asking you some questions during the session. If we have enough time left, we will have a bit of a discussion. And what you can also do is contact me if you have ideas that you would like to discuss more in depth, because we have the time and we have a framework where we can do something with your ideas. So if you have an idea, if you have a barrier that you like to see addressed, please contact me and we can discuss it and see what we can do with it within Eudres. So I'd like to ask you a few questions that you can answer at WooClap. So you can participate by going to wooclap.com/changecorner. And I just want to have a view of how much you already know about sustainability and circularity. Please feel free to answer honestly. If you're not at all circular or sustainable, please feel free to tell us, because we want to help you. So this already looks good. Apparently, everyone sees that UCLL is very sustainable, or at least everyone who has answered yet. Okay, so I think almost everyone has answered. It seems like we have a pretty knowledgeable audience about sustainability and circular economy. Not perfect, but everyone seems to have some sort of idea. After the session, we'll ask some of these questions again to see whether there were some new things you learned about circular economy, or whether you actually already knew these things but you just never thought they were circular economy. So with that, I would like to give the word to Patricia to talk about Eudres.
Wacht, opnieuw. Zo, hè. Dit zo. Zo. Bon appétit. Good afternoon, good noon. How do you say this? I hope you enjoy your lunch. And I hope you will enjoy all these sessions. I'm very proud of Sarah, who has created all these sessions on circular economy. As we all know, it's not very easy. It wasn't very easy to co-create this, but she managed, and I think this is a wonderful example of how Eudres is willing to do this. Okay, so my big challenge will be the technology to stay within the range of the camera. So Eudres is a European University Alliance, one of the 41, which is 5% of all European education. And from this 4%, from this 41, so there are only 3 that include University of Applied Sciences. So UCLL can be very proud of it to be part of this European University Alliances. The idea was launched by Macron, and he wanted to increase the quality of European education, but he also wanted to increase the appeal of European education for people outside of Europe. And of course, there are also some small letters. He wanted to reduce the universities that say don't live up to the expectations. There's also a kind of small letter catch in all this. He launched it in 2017, and from that very moment on, we could hear about European University Alliances in every conference, meetings of Eudres, of EATU, or of Eurydice. Everybody talked about the European University Alliances. So it was very clear this was the way forward for everybody. But it was also very clear that all the big universities with a lot of students, a lot of professors, a lot of patents, a lot of papers, were the ones that were going for it. And people from the universities of applied sciences were wondering whether we were allowed to even submit. So we self-disqualified, if you want to. And then there was a meeting in Brussels, led by Michael Karpicek, And he said, this was the second round, and he said, look, we have noticed that everybody, please do come in. So, and so they had made an overview, and they saw that it was only universities, sort of fundamental research universities. So that's why they said this is not the purpose. We want to show the diversity of European education. And so this is when we said, okay, now we can move forward. We started with Stubal, our friends in Portugal, and we started by rethinking. So we are not the big ones, we are the small ones. We are situated in economically challenged areas. We need to cater for our students there. We wanted to be the universities of nearness because that was our strength. So we didn't want to compete with the strength of the other universities, but of this, we wanted to show our own strength. And so we created this nearness university in a methodological way. So the iLiving Labs invite everybody to participate in the iLiving Lab and co-create new knowledge. The citizen science, circular economy is an example of it, invites the citizens into the science projects, not as a focus group, but as people who participate throughout the whole research project. And Sarah has invited you to co-create, to interact. We hope we have a lot of discussions. That's why I have to be very short in my presentation. So this is what we did. Then we have the hackathons, because Eudres stands for the European Engaged Entrepreneurial University, as driver for smart and sustainable regions. And then there's another sentence, but we couldn't get this in our title, and it's for the well-being of the region and every citizen living in it. But imagine how long the word would be then. So we wanted for everybody to create a possibility to have and to see their future path. And the engaged university means that we have this interaction, this two-way communication, that everybody has a say, and that everything we do is for the benefit of the region we live in. This is a very important aspect. And the smart regions is not only about using IT for the region, but it's also about making sure that every resource, also every human talent, finds its way in our region, is being used, is being harnessed. That's very important. Sustainable, and that's my favorite. There are many, many, many definitions of sustainable, but my favorite is the one that says you cater for the needs of the people right now, like your food, without harming the needs of our future generations. This is my favorite definition of sustainable regions. Now everybody thinks about Eudres, or the European University Alliances are about innovating education. And probably everybody thinks, yes, that's what it's about. But I kind of disagree, and it's my role to disagree, it's my role to be out of screen, so, but that's it's not important. So it's, the thing is, it's not about the success of higher education, about your own success as an educator, a researcher. It's about creating a future for the region. It's about taking up the responsibility of education and its role for the region. How do we envision the future? Is it a period where we have left out people, where people have to say, don't mind me, I am a leftover person. Somebody has pushed the delete button when they saw me. I have no use in this society anymore. And this is something that I've been told many times, like, okay, you're envisioning, you're talking about this future perspective, but who am I in this future vision? What am I supposed to do? Will I have enough competences to participate? And this is what we are doing. We are taking our responsibility for a future where no one is deleted, where nobody sees himself as a leftover person, where there's no future with a big sign, exit. And that's where our region and our people should go. So when we talk about Eudres, it's about this commitment of making sure that everybody finds his way, that everybody sees this is my future path and I belong to this future vision. Now, when Sarah introduced circular economy, it was not about the things we have to do in the future, but it's about the things that we have to do right now to make sure that everybody has a future. This is my introduction. Now it's up to you.
Are there any questions or remarks at this point? No? Then I'll give the word to Nicoletta and I'll start her presentation.
Okay, so I'm Nicoletta, I study chemistry and I'm involved with Green Office for KU Leuven, where I work mostly on campus operations and the topics of food. And today I would like to introduce the concept of circular economy. So there are several things that come to mind when people hear circular economy. I think recycling is the one that's mostly drilled to people's mind. I mean, they have a great circular logo that really, it was mostly created by marketing to really push you to really think recycling is the top. But later I'm going to show you recycling when you think about whole circular economy is really seen mostly as a last resort thing to use. And the reason for it is when you have, for example, aluminum can and you have to turn it back to raw material, you have to put a lot of energy first to convert the material, but you use all the value that was created, the labor that was put, and energy that was first invested to really put the material first into the can. That's why we really see as one of the last resort solutions. Another thing that became quite popular in recent years is the zero waste movement. So it's really individuals, people saying, okay, I can see my personal impact, I see how many trash I'm contributing to landfill, I want to have it as small as possible. The problem with us, people usually try to focus super much on their personal choices. And if you live in Western countries, so like here in Europe or States, even if you would like move to the farm and didn't interact with society whatsoever, just because you're born here, your country makes huge infrastructure investments, may invest some of the money in fossil fuels. So there's a lot of impact you have even if you don't do anything. So it's important to really know that you exist in a system, and even if you personally are super sustainable, there's a world around you, so it's important to work on those bigger systems. Another example of people interact is, for example, when you go to visit Paris or London, it's easy to hire a bike to go for the city. Lately, there's more and more sharing services, like fancy clothes for occasions and so on. So this is a nice example of sharing economy, where you really get much more use of a single object that if you would own personally, you wouldn't really get much. Now to get the core of the definition, I'm going to use the concept created by Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So they're based in the UK, and basically they really put into research of circular economy and cooperating with businesses to really put those practices like on the agenda, and not just to keep them like nice in research papers, but to put them out there. And they have 3 pillars. So first is design, because for example, if you have your phone and it's like the end of its life cycle, if it's not made to even be taken apart or repaired, there's not really much options you have. So you really have to start with design. So for example, using materials that are easy to put apart and are available for recycling, or some parts that can be easily reused. Electronics that are easy to open, so so it's easy to find people in your environment that are able to repair it. Later you have product life cycle. If products are made to last and are easy to repair, again, they're gonna stay in a circulation for much longer. So you should start to think straight from designing and buying something, how long can it be in the system? And thirdly is generation, because all the products, again, are embedded in this bigger ecosystem that we're in. So it's great that we're thinking about how the computers can be made as sustainably as possible, how we can have houses with minimal impact, But if our ecosystem where we're getting those building blocks are destroyed, then all our efforts is not really worthy much. And another concept to mostly see it more clearly is natural capital. It was even tried to be introduced more for the government level on the summit in Rio in 2012. So basically, natural capital is like boring accounting concept when you don't really only look at the GDP of the country, but you also look at environmental services that are done by ecosystems that are on the land. So for example, a lot of countries in Asia have great mangrove forests that really care for lack of erosion. They're providing a lot of habitat for animals that those countries are living from. Or if you look at Brazil, maybe it's not the most richest country, but it has some of the most biodiverse ecosystems present. So it makes it a much more richer country in that sense when you really think about the ecosystems that are present. Another examples are oceans and marine services. So ocean is something most people take for granted. We lodge huge amount of waste into it, we overfish it, but we get huge benefits from it, whether it's about having the food source, regulation of temperature, having a huge carbon sink, or looking for new animals that through synthetic biology can be used later for medicine. It's like very important. And we really see it deteriorating. I know maybe you've seen the documentary Chasing Coral. It really shows the mass bleaching events in a very nice visual way. If we go further to how we can see circular economy, one of the more popular models is a butterfly diagram. So what it does is really divides all the materials we have in use into things that are technical, so anything like plastic bottles, computers, and so on, and then biological cycles, so anything that can biodegrade. So the core of the butterfly is our linear production, so we take the materials, parts are produced, things are manufactured, and finally we get something as a user. So if we look at the technical cycle, it would be, for example, mining some metals in Africa that later go into chip for your phone. And if we look at biological cycles, for example, growing cotton for your t-shirts. Then looking more closer in the technical cycle, as you see, the arrows that go like more inside means like product stays on the same level, so there's less energy loss because, for example, we keep the same item and just moving it to another person, or we're repairing it. While something that's more on the outside means we're skipping all those levels, so there's huge value and energy loss through it. So first, easiest option is maintaining and prolonging the life of things we already have. So if you think about your clothes as fixing that hole or maybe redying the blouse you're bored with instead of throwing it away. For example, we live here in Belgium. Belgians actually produce the most textile waste in the entire Europe, while not being really aware of it. And we really like to think that we can like put it in the charity shops, dispose it, and it's getting recycled, but that's not really true. Majority of our textile waste is sent to Africa, and those people have to deal with it. So, Later, we use redistribution, sharing. So I don't know, my phone doesn't work, or we're at school, we have a lot of computers that are no longer needed. They can be moved to some other organization that has them in needs. So they stay in a cycle and are straight disposed. Refurbishing is, for example, your car is broken, but most of the engine parts, say 80%, is still perfectly working. So let's say Volvo, I think, already has a program like that. They can take those engines back and only change and throw out certain parts of the engine. So you're getting like a fully valuable product. Well, you have much less investment of energy when it comes to changing it. And recycling, so the most popular fare is actually like last resort again, because you're going back to that material. Also a problem with recycling is people see it a bit differently. So a popular, not really circular economy thing that people do is using plastic bottles to, for example, build greenhouses, put plants in them, because it's seen like, yeah, we're giving them another life, so it's good. But you have to think a bit further. Are you keeping the qualities of the materials in a system? Not really. plastic left in their environment is shedding a lot of microplastics. So actually, you're worsening the overall ecosystem by doing it. And plastic bottles out of all plastics are one of the easier recyclable materials. And if you look at overall global supply chains, we're actually in a bigger need. So demand for recycled PET is not met. A lot of companies nowadays want to have recycled plastic bottles, recycled food packaging, clothes from recycled polyester. So there's huge need for it that is not met. So sometimes it's good when you have some material to think about this whole life cycle. Then when we look biological one, as you see, is always skipping back to the initial material because it's about decomposition. Is basically work on the fact that little microbes can digest those natural materials. So whether we're creating compost, whether we're creating biogas, is taking advantage of those creative things that can be much easier returned to nature. So this is how the two wings of the butterfly are looking in the end. What's important to note is, like, even in the idealized world, there's always going to be some leak of waste that cannot be reused in any way. And sometimes it's very necessary. For example, think about medical waste. Just because of safety and hygiene reasons, this waste shouldn't be treated. Is straight from the design meant to be burned at the end of its life cycle. If we try to look maybe beyond that bubble, any product is living within an ecosystem, so any problem exists in a bigger sphere of issues. So for example, if we think about growing population and the fact more and more people are moving towards the cities. For years, the go-to solution was building suburbs, extra housing complexes close to the cities. The problem of that is, like, okay, your house may be very energy efficient and is using some reclaimed materials, but there's a huge amount of infrastructure, roads, garages, sewage that has to be built to connect it. Well, if we look inwards, there's more and more movements for more sustainable urbanization. They're calling, let's keep the city limits the way they are. An example is in Hong Kong or Singapore, a lot of apartments were built for speculation, so they were just empty. And you could have even like 20% of the city that was empty purposely to earn more money in the future. So then instead of focusing on those sustainable suburbs, it's better to focus on better legislature that is forbidding this amount of housing that is left unused in the city. So thank you for your attention.